Man kills unarmed man with knife. Doesn't sound good on the news, right? Without a doubt, if we bring weapons into play against somebody who attacks us, especially if they don't have a weapon, there's going to be a difference in the perception there, right? I'm not saying it's wrong, right? We may be completely legally justified in doing that, but there's a difference in the perception. When I first started at my department, in the policy there were a couple of very strange things. But one of the weird sections I noted was like they dedicated like 2 paragraphs to saying, look, you're only going to use a knife if there's an absolute last resort. Right? You can shoot anybody with anything you want. 100 times, that's fine. But if you stab them, there's going to be hell to pay, right? They're right about that, though. It's just the way we view the particular tool. One of the things that annoys me is they always talk about gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. Violence is violence, right? No matter what's involved, it's violence, right? But we've been conditioned to perceive this differently. We see people get shot on TV all the time. Do we see people get grabbed at the top of the hair and have their throat slit open on TV all the time? We don't see that all the time, do we? Do we see a knife driven into somebody's face all the time on TV, on primetime TV? But for some reason, we can watch a murder on primetime TV where somebody gets shot 3 or 4 times and dies right there. And it's like it's sanitary. It's no big deal, right? So without a doubt, there's a cultural difference in the way that we perceive a knife being used, right? And the perceived level of brutality that goes along with it. I think that has a lot to do with proximity, how close we are, as opposed to being separated. That makes a difference psychologically to the person defending themselves. The distance is really a big factor there. Roseman Wright wrote pretty well on that on combat, I think it was. Probably to some degree on combat and also on killing. But that proximity makes a difference, right? A-10 pilot. You lay down, how many people did you take out? A few, right? What did it feel like?
Nothing.
Right. You're pushing a button and you're however far away. Now, if that person is right in front of you and you got to stick a knife right here and that blood sprays on you and you're smelling the end of that, it's a really different thing. So understand, when we bring a knife into play, right, there is going to be a shift in that perception. There are going to be questions, right? And we talk about surviving things physically. That's what we train to do in here. We're surviving things physically. We have to survive things emotionally, spiritually. We should be preparing for those, right, if you're that kind of person. We also have to survive things legally. There are going to be questions, right? It's just the way we live in a society. That's the way it is. You can't just kill somebody and they go, oh, touch it, and you move on. So if you have to use a knife, if you have to use a stick, and you're doing that kind of damage, understand you're going to have questions. My best advice to you is that you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do is against the court of law. Okay? Shut up. Talk to an attorney, get somebody there. Nobody's saying you did anything wrong, right? And a lot of times to the officers investigating, it's going to be crystal clear, right? But we still got to do an investigation. We still got to go through it. But just my best advice to you, if you find yourself in that position, get yourself an attorney and kind of roll that way, right? So you'll see we carried over a lot of the stick and knife concepts, right? The stick on the ground, the knife on the ground is just so much more mobile than a stick, right? If we're in the guard, we can just grab the back of the head and we can start going with that knife. We saw that, we're playing around, rolling around with it. It doesn't take a whole lot of technique to keep that knife moving. It does take quite a bit more to keep the stick, right? What do you think is more likely to be on somebody, a stick or a knife? Knife. Knife, yeah, I agree. Especially, I don't know how it is in other parts of the country, but in Florida, we like to pretend we're rural, in Jacksonville. It's a city of like 1.3 million people, and everybody down here is like, we're country. I'm like, awesome, where's your cow? So, I grew up, oh, there's the cows, there's the horses. I moved down here, and like, they're way more country than we were up there, is their perception. So everybody's got a pocket knife on. They're ready to pull it out and it's ready to roll, I do too. What am I going to use it for, right? To open shit, to open boxes, to open something my kid bought. 99.99% of the time. I hope I never have to stick it into somebody, but if you do, it's a pocket knife and it's there. Sticks, probably a lot less common. Have you seen many, like, stick blown out during attacks? One. I've seen a couple. It was a weapons of convenience thing. Really good tool is a polymer baking rolling thing, like a rolling thing. It's like one solid piece, but it's polymer. Oh. Dang, man, that thing was heavy. It was like, wow. After we put that thing into evidence, I'm like, awesome, I gotta get one, just like carry it in the car. Those things are good. Big, heavy tools. So it's possible, yeah, but I saw very little of that over 11 years, just not much of it. Knife attacks, much more common. Yeah. Do you see more knife or more gun attacks, Steve?
Probably gun.
Think so? What do you think, Manny? Do you see more knife attacks or gun attacks?
In my experience,
yeah.
knife.
Knife? I definitely saw more knife. So it was hands down for me statistically, I think we had a lot more knife going on than we had guns. And I kind of pinned that down to just availability. You know, every house has multiple knives in it, and they're everywhere. You know, so it's going to be more prevalent. And England, if you know anybody in England that lives over there, they have a huge problem with their news is always talking about knife violence.
They should ban knives.
Right, it's like, never good. Okay, no more knives. Yeah, then we're going to get down to stick violence. It's okay, sticks are banned, you know. But we just got to be ready to counter that. So remember, we're getting offensive with the weapons. So there's going to be a shift in the perception of what we're doing to defend ourselves, right? Now, there are some situations that are pretty darn clear. You wake up in the middle of the night, some guy's in your house, right, and he's coming towards you. You know, pretty much any state you're in, roll with it. You know, it's like, oh, I've got this alligator I always wanted to put on somebody. You know, let me grab my alligator and eat this guy. There are situations that are just that crystal clear. There are some situations that are a lot more ambiguous. So, you know, just legally, we need to be able to be there and protect ourselves. Questions of everything we went over today?